Chenoweth, Huth, Whalen, Otto, Chair Satterthwaite.
Here. First item on our agenda this evening is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have verification of township bills. In the town fund, the amount of $51,998.09. In the general assistance fund, the amount of $44,890.32. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Carol, anything we should know about the bill?
No.
Month, okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Reports of officers.
I just want to mention that item number 2 under new business, amending the contract with Project Read, is we don't need to do that at this point. They were concerned that some money they were depending on from the Secretary of State may not come, and therefore they would need to revise their agreement to use the money for a different some different things, but they got the money, and so we don't need to amend the agreement.
Any objection to taking that off the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll take that off. Any other reports of officers, Carol?
No.
Okay. And petitions and communications? Well, we'll go right into new business. That leaves one item of new business for the town board meeting, and that's approval of the revised daycare program rules.
Bless you. I've been talking for a couple of months now about changing the daycare program rules, since it's apparent that what we used to know of as Title 20 funds is no longer and has been replaced by various subsidies. I think the most commonly used is under the Illinois Department of Human Services, and the number of providers that will offer spaces to families who are eligible for this is quite larger than it used to be under Title 20. We used to serve maybe 4 or 5 daycares a year. I think for right now the best thing to do would be to revise the rules to just allow any daycares that serve eligible families who qualify for DHS subsidies be allowed to apply for the daycare program, and we'll prepare contracts based on new applications that we get and proceed as usual for the reimbursement rate, which would be dependent on what reports the daycare has turned in, on the number of children in Urbana who meet the eligibility requirements. I think at the most it's going to add a couple of daycare facilities. The information I got from surveying is that at least 26 facilities serve families who are eligible for this, but the amount of Urbana families served, I think it's going to come out about the same, that the agencies or the facilities that provide services to more Urbana low-income residents are going to end up getting more money out of the $10,000, and then if we want to think about revising the program, we can do that over the next year, but we need to bring some more people in, I think, in to talk about it, and if we want to put more money towards something. So in your packet is just basically the same program. It just substitutes Illinois Department of Human Service subsidies for Title 20, and then we'll send out application forms, and any daycare will have to reapply who wants to be considered for this.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Now, previously, we had 4 daycares involved in the program.
Correct.
And they each got, what, $2,500?
$2,500 a quarter was distributed among the daycares based on it was prorated for a higher amount going to the daycares that served a larger number of eligible families. So the higher percentage that a daycare has of low-income Urbana families, they got more money.
So does that mean that since we're going to be serving more daycares, there's a possibility that the total amount might increase?
There is only 10,000 budgeted in this year's budget, and since things are fairly tight, I don't see that we can add to that right now, unless we have a really good year. But I think for now we should stick with the 10,000, then maybe reconsider for next fiscal year.
Okay. That's all.
Any other questions?
Would it be possible for you to, you mentioned convening a committee, but to explore a way that we might be able to use this money to leverage additional daycare spots? That was in the past, that was one of the concerns we had, but if we, under the way the program is designed now, if we had more money, or if we allocated more money, it's not even just a matter of, I'm not even thinking of GA here, I'm thinking the total social services pool.
Right.
If we wanted to take more than $10,000 out of our $260,000 or so to put toward child care, the way it's set up right now, it would be helping the centers, because we'd be, if we made $20,000, they'd be getting more, but it would not be creating any more.
Right.
It wouldn't be helping any more children.
Right.
And I think there's been an interest expressed here enough times in using the city funds and the township fund, or some combination of city and township funds to make child care services available for more families, if that were possible with this kind of program. I don't know if there is, but is that something that you could look into in the next 6 months so that we know in March before we started divvying up money again?
Sure. And the conversation I had with the data collection person at the Child Resource Center thought that something like that, you'd have to have a lot more money if you wanted to actually provide additional spaces, because it's not that there are spaces there for kids to fall into if they became eligible for something. But of the, I think it was 6 or 7 daycares that responded in detail to one of the surveys I sent out, and I basically got 6 answers of how more money might help them. Some said it would lower the parents' copay, because that is a problem for some of the parents, and it would also help with administrative expenses or supplies. So there's quite a variety of answers out there, but I think that is certainly something to look into.
And if we could just have those, I'm thinking maybe around March, if we could have those options of, I mean, if it would take an extra $10,000 per child to create the spots, at least to know that that's what the dollar amount is, or what it would take to lower parents' copay, so it would be so that the family wouldn't have as much burden for providing child care, or that type of thing.
Right. And I do want to remind you that in the packet there is an annual report from the Child Care Resource Center that has a lot of really good statistics, and so I will talk directly with them to get more information.
Yeah, just a few clarifying questions. So it sounds like we have $10,000 in our township fund for allocation to low-income Urbana families for daycare. Is it the case the money used to come from the federal government through Title 20 and now it's coming through Illinois, or?
No, it was, I think that the city ran this program prior to 1989, and it was meant to be matching funds for money received under Title 20.
Okay. Which was federal or state?
I believe that that's federal, but it might have come through the states. It's not real clear. And then the money from the township was just matching funds, and we became aware that the Title 20 funding was changing because of last year one of the daycares said, well, it's basically it's the same people that we serve, but they don't call it Title 20 anymore, and that's what led into looking into all of this and realizing that the whole picture has really changed.
Has the annual allocation since '89 been around $10,000?
Correct. It's been that every year.
Every year. And what's been the average subsidies per child in the past when you have a formula where you're looking at the kitty and how many people are Urbana low-income kids?
The money is divided up per child care facility, and I can tell you that I think the Bradley Street Daycare Center probably got the larger amounts of the $2,500 that was prorated. I think Bradley and Marilyn Keller in the community daycare all got fairly large amounts. The First United Methodist Church in Champaign daycare had a few children that qualified, so they would get very small amounts. I can get that information to you. I don't have it on me, but I know that it is proportionally slanted to give more money to the daycares that serve a larger portion of low-income families.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's on the order of $20 or $100 per child per quarter, if it's just...
Yeah, I'd have to
pennies.
get out the statistics, but
Okay.
I can do that.
And then, so my understanding from your presentation is that the number of eligible daycares is going to go up, and that you think about the same number of kids will be eligible, although it sounds like the rules are relaxed under IDHS. Or is it not the case, the rules aren't particularly, the eligibility requirements aren't any more relaxed than they were before?
I think under the Illinois Department of Human Services, there are a lot more people who qualify, as I understand it. I don't know if it was the daycare centers that didn't serve eligible families. It's not clear to me how all this evolved, that so many more daycares now will have slots for children, not have slots for children, but will be serving families that are eligible. And I think there are a number of families that are eligible but haven't applied, and they also factor into the statistics that's in the annual report that you have. So some of this is not clear to me how it evolved from Title 20 to what it is now, other than all, I think, happening with welfare reform and the block grants and things like that. So.
So I guess then I'll just raise a concern that maybe we should be keeping our eyes out for in the next year, and that is that it sounds like the pool of eligible kids will increase. The pot isn't getting any bigger.
Right.
And my question would be, sometimes it's not, if it's $20 per child per quarter, it may be that it's really it gets to a point where there's actually a negligible amount of money that's being given per child.
Right.
And there might be a different way to organize the
Right.
system given that eligibility's gone up. So it sounds like you're advocating a kind of wait-and-see attitude, and then we can address this in March and April when we look at our consolidated social service funding, and you'll provide a report at that time to kind of look at what's changed given the eligibility.
That's correct. I think it was too late in the fiscal year to really make any major changes, and I think we need a lot more input from the daycare providers to know what is the best way to help them and to help families, and that's what I'll be doing now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, we'll see that in the coming months then. And there being no further business to come before us, this Cunningham Town Board meeting is adjourned. Oh,
Do we need to vote to approve the change in the regulations, or is that something that
I think
the
Carol said she was
supervisor does
going to
administratively?
bring that back in a few months, weren't you? Didn't you? What do you want to?
Current year?
Agencies to apply, so I think just a
You wanna
quick
vote on
approval
this?
of the...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, before I send information out to the
right,
providers, and then we'll be voting on the contracts next month.
Okay, I move to approve the changes in the daycare manual.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And now, there being no further business to come before us, this Cunningham Town Board meeting is adjourned, and we'll be meeting as the Urbana City Council at 7:30. I'd like to call this meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chenoweth. Present. Mr. Hayes. Ms. Huth. Mr. Otto. Ms. Pat.
Present.
Mr. Whalen.
Here?
Ms. Wyman. Here. Mayor Satterthwaite.
Here. Did get a call from Ms. Huth indicating she wasn't feeling well today and won't be able to attend the meeting. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. We have two sets of minutes to approve: the regular meeting of August 18th and a special meeting of August 25th. Is there a motion?
Move approval of both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections? Ms. Shelley?
Oh, no.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes, on the special meeting minutes for Monday, August 25, at the bottom of the front page, under ordinance number 2003-08-090, and ordinance amending the liquor code, it states that the motion was seconded by Alderwoman Wyman, and actually it was seconded by Alderwoman Chenoweth. So if that correction can be made. Ms. Pat checked that. I asked Ms. Pat to check it on her videotape, and she did that and confirmed it with, I confirmed it with Ms. Chenoweth as well, who agreed.
Objection to that correction? Objection, we'll go ahead and make that change. Any other additions or corrections? Any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Any additions or corrections to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll go on to petitions and communications. If there's anybody here that would like to speak to the council for a period of no more than 5 minutes, if you'll go ahead and pick up one of these white cards at the back of the room and bring it up to myself or the clerk, you'll have a chance to do so. First, we have Peter Lavavi, representing Brinshaw Development and the Stratford Center Developer Designation. Peter? Oh, did you want to say anything, or here to just answer questions, or? Okay. Did you want to do the presentation at the time of the agenda item?
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no objection from council members?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. Next is Carl Hill, 1913 Trails Drive on South Ridge, 5 subdivision approval. Carl?
I just want to let you all know that I'm here to answer any questions that you might have tonight, if anything has happened since last week, if there's anything I can help you with. Also, I'd like to speak on behalf of myself, not the home builders or not UBA, but hopefully we can get some services and some retail in Urbana. We're at a good location for traffic. We're at a good location for availability for most of the community and some of the other communities to the east of us to take advantage of the rezoning that we could do tonight on that 74 acres. So I'd like to say that I'm, of course, in favor of that. We want to see Urbana become a more dynamic place in which to live, work, and do business, and it'd be nice to have a place to do business. Thank you.
Any questions for Carl right now? Okay, thank you. I had Cecilia Allen, 3712 East University, on a rezoning at 150 and 130.
My husband and I live across the street from the area proposed for rezoning. I was in this chamber not 2 weeks ago to voice our objections to this action and received a rather enlightening introductory lesson in local politics. Since then, I've investigated this issue, as have a number of people here tonight. In the ensuing time period, I've watched a lot of activity on this 76-acre parcel of land. Crops are being driven over, stakes and flags set out, some kind of drilling rig moving from place to place on the site. It would seem that somebody considers this a done deal. The developer and his large corporation have had months and months and months to present to you sugar plum fairy visions of city coffers being awash in sales tax revenues. And then, when it's all said and done, a few people that live a scant 250 feet away from the property are sent a quiet notice in the mail and given a few moments at a public hearing to suggest to you that this might not be a good idea. Clusters of superstores, and we have some dozen or so in Champaign-Urbana, have been known to drive whole regional chains of food stores out of business. One such chain of 7 stores in our community and their distributor right here in Urbana. This same chain has served not only Champaign-Urbana, but also virtually every small town around here for decades. They operate at a very small profit margin. In New England, Walmart and other large retailers overran an area and managed to run the then nation's 4th largest retail chain out of business. 22,000 workers took home pink slips, and 145 stores in the Northeast went up for lease. If they can do that to a well-established old business, it can happen to us. It is happening with increasing and frightening regularity all over this country. With the addition of yet another supercenter to these twin cities, Urbana would be putting us all at considerable risk of the same fate. And the damage would not be confined to Urbana alone. Virtually every small town for miles around would lose their only grocery store, and we will all have to trail to the edge of town to buy our groceries. Grocery stores are not the only businesses affected. Retail space has grown at an astounding rate here in the last 10 years, while the area population has remained relatively stable. Do we really need another 5 or 6 acres of retail floor space? Unless we all go out and buy a whole lot more of everything than we usually do, something's got to give, and it will be local businesses. A study done for the considered Meyer sports that many businesses will fail with the addition of another supercenter. When Walmart moved into Rantoul, a local office supply business was forced to close, and once it was gone, the large retailer stopped carrying office supplies. Further residential development is also stymied by this kind of sprawl, although people making $800 a month can't buy houses. Would you build a home near one of these? These stores are not good neighbors. Bright lights glare all night. Heavy traffic of deliveries and customers thunders by 24 hours a day, and huge volumes of trash are generated by these places. The trash is not confined to their parking lot, as they invariably clear-cut all the trees for maximum visibility. And there are a lot of trees along the north side of this property. Have you seen the countryside north of the North Prospect development? It is not the vision of the quality of life that people want to see in this community. Goliath Corporation spent a lot of time and money to tempt desperate, fiscally strapped local governments with their rosy promises. They will not, of course, fill you in on the downside, which includes the added cost for police, fire, and other town services, loss of tax revenues from other businesses, cost of residential tax grievances, loss of revenues through tax abatements, besides the cost of water, sewer, and other city improvements, which will require more tax revenues to install. The costs result in a net loss for most cities. A couple of zoning committee members cited funding for the schools as the reason for approving the petition to rezone. This is an admirable impetus, but good schools are made of committed teachers and involved parents. Money can't buy that. With a net loss of tax revenues, the schools will lose, and the students will graduate into a diminished community of diminished opportunities. The unscrupulous labor and business practices of these big box corporations are exposed almost daily in prestigious publications such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes magazine. Walmart has had thousands and thousands of lawsuits filed against it for everything from institutional racism to negligence in public safety. There are many books out exposing and condemning the despicable tactics of these mega retailers. I would hope that you've read at least one of them. Their tactics are now so well known that more enlightened states have adopted laws to contain supercenter sprawl. Your proposed zoning is for this type of business, not small to mid-sized businesses. You need to develop responsibly. I pretty much appealed to you here on the grounds of idealism and community spirit. I don't want to live in the United States of Walmart. But I harbor no illusions. The issue is about money, and lots of it. Making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars is the sole objective of the developer and the large retailers. They don't live here. They don't have anything to lose, and they have everything to gain. Please don't be blindsided by $100 billion corporations and lawyers. If you bring this Trojan horse into Urbana, the legacy of this council will be the for lease sign. Too many communities have found out too late that, at the end of the day, the promised tax revenues simply do not materialize from these alliances with large retailers.
Sal, would
This
you
is
finish up,
indeed
please?
economic cocaine, and the damage done to local economies cannot be undone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other petitions and communications from council members? Yes, Ms. Wyman?
Yeah, I was shown the Stop Walmart postcard that went out, and if anyone tried to contact me, I think they didn't reach me because my phone number was incorrectly stated, so I'll just tell people in case they're interested. My phone number is 367-5643, and I think it was inadvertently stated as the same phone number as Mr. Hayes, and it's not. So just wanted to give that correction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other petitions and communications from council members? Mr. Whalen?
I'd just like to compliment Public Works Department for the improvement on Vine Street. It is an excellent difference. And there are other areas where this possibly could happen, but this is a marked achievement, and they're to be congratulated.
Yeah, thank you. And got it open before the start of school at the middle school, too, so that was a big bonus.
Yes.
So, any other petitions and communications from council members? Ms. Pat?
I just want to mention, if folks haven't noticed, the new Baskin-Robbins and Dunkin' Donuts, which of course I noticed, on University Avenue, just east of the Kentucky Fried Chicken, a couple blocks west of Ray Street, is now open.
Further petitions and communications? All right, we'll go to reports of standing committees, since there is no old business. The report from the Committee of the Whole, Ms. Pat?
Thank you. The first item is resolution number 2003-08020R, a resolution authorizing the Chief Administrative Officer to file or join in an informal complaint with the Illinois Commerce Commission concerning Illinois Power Company's customer service and reliability. For the committee, I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Wyman?
Yeah, I just want to add, I think that the more and more days that pass, the more I'm convinced that something is necessary to bring Illinois Power into line with what's required and what's important in this community. In the last 2 days, for example, in the last 2 days in the apartment building in which I live, the power has gone out twice, and once for more than just a few minutes. I think, and I'm sure that the building where I live was not the only area to experience this inconvenience, and especially for people who do a lot of business or work from home, I think it's an added inconvenience, and so I'm anxious that for the city to work with Champaign in filing this complaint, and then to hear any updates of what comes of this.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes, I just support the city's jointly going to the Illinois Commerce Commission to discuss complaints against Illinois Power. I'm seriously concerned, given news that Illinois Power is now up for sale. That could mean good news in the future, because it could mean that it's passed to an organization that does a much better job of taking care of its residential and business customers, but it certainly means that we could face some instability in the near future, and we already have reliability problems and concerns. So I certainly think that the cities need to be monitoring the situation very closely to make sure that we kind of act as, and with the ICC as watchdogs, to make sure that our business and residential communities are well served, appropriately served by Illinois Power.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Whalen?
I've noticed the same thing with the power outages in the past, actually past few months. It's happened a number of times, perhaps for just a small period of time, but the clocks stop, the electronic clocks stop, and that can tell you that the power shortage has happened. That can be very serious when it comes to refrigeration of food, and if anybody whose health requires some kind of electronic device. And you know, I don't recall this happening before this period of time, this recent period of time, by Illinois Power. Remember their lack of sensitivity to the neighbors' complaints when they started to cut back trees, and that surprised me, because I knew Al Anderson when he was the president of Illinois Power. He was very concerned about the public attitude rather, about things, and there was great deal of concern otherwise when people couldn't pay their bills. They were very helpful. Illinois Power has changed. And this effort by the cities is required. And I hope it doesn't have to go further than this.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? There's no other discussion. All those in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Pat?
Thank you. Item B, ordinance number 2003-09092, an ordinance approving a redevelopment agreement with 5 Points Northeast LCC. For the committee, I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
That motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Pat?
Thank you. Item C, ordinance number 2003-08088, an ordinance designating Brinshore Development LLC for the redevelopment of 206 and 208 North Race Street in tax increment finance district numbers 1 and 2. For the committee, I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Looks like we got a presentation from Peter.
Nothing formal. Just want to introduce Peter Levevy of Brinshore Development and have him say a few words about Brinshore and their proposal. Just real quick, you'll recall last week in your packet was this ordinance designating them as developer. We're really excited about this project, and we're excited about working with Brinshore coming towards a development agreement that we'd present to you hopefully in the next couple months. That would obviously give you a lot more detail about the timing of development, the obligations of the city developer, incentive package, and all that kind of detail. But for tonight, we wanted to give Peter a chance to introduce himself, so I'm going to hand it over to Peter.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council, for giving this opportunity to come before you. My name is Peter Levevy, and I'm a Senior Vice President with Brinshore Development.
How do you spell your name, sir?
Levavi. The two other principals of the company, David Brint and Rich Shortino, formed their partnership in 1993, and since that time we've worked together developing or have under development about 5,000 units of housing around the state of Illinois, a very diverse type of housing. We specialize in mixed income housing and urban properties. So as you may know, we have been designated as the developer by the Housing Authority of Champaign County for both the Lakeside Terrace project and the Birch Village project. In Chicago, we are familiar with doing new construction, townhome and condominium projects, as well as affordable housing development there. So we have a pretty diverse portfolio. We think this is a very exciting opportunity and a real win-win situation for the city of Urbana and for Brinshore. We think there is a great site here and a very good idea and something that could really enhance the assets of Urbana by providing an opportunity to create a new housing type, a very urban, hip, contemporary product where people could have loft-style condominiums while activating the street with retail and really bringing activity down to the downtown here. And I think the project that we've put together is something that's very exciting. We've been very sensitive to the architectural style in the downtown area. We've studied Main Street very closely, and we've developed a building that very much closely resembles the massing and the architectural styles of Main Street, while at the same time contemporizing it and making it a very contemporary looking building, very modern looking building with floor to ceiling windows and balconies. We plan on putting 30 units of housing, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, as well as 4 storefronts on the site. The prices would range, we're guessing, from $150,000 to approximately $250,000. We don't know what the storefronts will be yet, but we could imagine them being anything from a cafe to a boutique to a small office, and we think that there's good opportunities for people to take advantage of these spaces, and I think we'll have strong interest for those retail spaces. Another thing you should know is that we're sensitive to the issue of providing housing that's accessible to those who are in wheelchairs. 4 of the units are on the ground floor and will have no step entries and will be accessible at the ground level. We're looking forward to developing our marketing materials, putting up a sign on the site and measuring the interest we have, and we're really looking forward to having people respond to that. And we're excited to work with the City of Urbana. We're already working closely with the City of Urbana, and we appreciate that we're able to do this on more than one project here. So thank you very much for inviting me down here today, and I look forward to working with you over the coming weeks and months and years on this and other projects here. If there are any other questions, I'm open to answering them. Yes?
Chenoweth?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions and just a statement. This is a very exciting project for Urbana and for downtown Urbana, and I think we're looking forward to working with Bryn Shore in making this a successful joint project between the city and Bryn Shore. And certainly I think downtown Urbana has been ripe for this for a while, and in many ways your company is smart in noticing that potential and taking advantage of it. I had a couple of questions looking through the documentation today, and then I know we're not necessarily looking at development agreement, but I wondered, you mentioned the price for residential. I wondered if you had a range for the price for the commercial condos on the first floor.
Right. We do have a price for them. It could go one of two directions. They could end up, we are going to try to sell them as condominium units, and I do have a price for them here. They range from $200,000 to $500,000 for the large space that has 3,388 square feet. So it's a range of prices. We have a backup strategy of leasing those spaces too, so I think we can make this work one way or the other, so we're pretty enthusiastic about it. Mm-hmm. We are just beginning our marketing of that now, so I don't have any firm indications of which direction we're going to go on it, but the intention is to sell those as condominium units.
Okay, and we're looking for retail uses for the...
Exactly.
Rather than office uses.
Yes, we want to activate the street level and have it be something that it really builds to the atmosphere and has people coming and going.
Next question is, I guess in some earlier pictures, it looks as though part of the parking you're expecting will be covered and part will be not covered. And it looked like at some point you were considering a rooftop garden. Is that still in the works, or?
It's something we need to look at with the budget, and we're going to look at a lot of options like that. I know that we've discussed the idea of doing green elements to this design, and it's something that I'd like to pursue seriously, and we'll be looking at those opportunities.
Yeah, I suggest that you really look at the possibilities in the Urbana market for those kind of green building designs, and also just the fact that it's a downtown structure without a lot of green space currently around it. Right. That looking into those opportunities might really boost your ability to sell those condos.
Right. We plan on building some green space in the rear of the property. It's obviously not a large area, and like you're describing, we'd like it to be more. We're very happy that we're going to be able to provide balconies, which do give people outdoor access, and they should be a very good amenity for these units.
Okay. One last question. I'm not privy to all the market studies that were done in the downtown, but I looked at the history of the kind of work that you've done in other communities, and I guess I just wondered why in this particular instance you weren't going for mixed income development with the tax credits, since it seems as though that is your forte, the forte of your company. Did you see that wasn't necessarily a need, or there's market incentive for that in the downtown?
Well, as you know, we're already doing a great deal of tax credit housing in Urbana, and we very much like the idea of mixing up our product type. I didn't mention that we're also the developer of the Robert Taylor homes in Chicago and the Henry Horner homes in Chicago, and in each of those mixed income developments, a large portion of it are for sale units, either in one case a mid-rise building In other cases, they're townhomes. In some cases, they're flats. And we feel very strongly about building a mixture of building types and tenures, both rental and ownership. And we're very glad to be able to provide this kind of opportunity here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just a comment, I just wanted to support your decision to give preference to Urbana contractors. I know you're going to be doing, if we move forward with a development agreement, you'll be looking for contractors and putting out for bid, and I strongly encourage you to of course, support, we'd like to see all of the development that happens in this community go to our local contractors, and it was, I was happy to see that you give minority preference, and I certainly hope that you'll consider doing union contracts as well.
Yeah, we strongly support doing that, and we'll also work with the minority community of subcontractors to make sure that they're adequately represented in all the general contracting that's done. So
Very good.
something
Thank
we're
you.
very strongly behind.
Any other questions? Peter, you mentioned as far as the residential units, you describe them as apartments. Are they all for sale, or are you planning on renting some of those out as well, or is it going to be a mix?
No, they're all for sale. When I say apartments, I mean as
That's the
opposed to
style.
single-family houses. They're
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you said there are going to be 30 of those?
30.
Uh-huh. Okay. Other questions?
We also like the idea that there's a mixture of sizes from 1s, 2s, and 3s, giving people different options of what they're looking for.
If there are no other questions, is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth? Mr. Hayes? Mr. Otto?
Sorry. Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Thanks, Peter, for coming down and the presentation.
My pleasure.
Ms. Pat?
Thank you. The last item from committee is ordinance number 2003-08089, an ordinance approving a final plat for South Ridge 5 subdivision, plan case number 1863S03. For the committee, I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes?
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Pat?
Thank you. That's our last item from tonight. The next meeting of the Committee of the Whole will be next Monday night, September 8th at 7:30 p.m. here at 400 South Vine Street.
Okay, thank you. Move on to reports of special committees. Any special committee reports this evening? About reports of officers. Notice Mr. Walden handed out the Economic Development Activities Report for the month of August. So that's on your desks. Mr. Walden, anything else?
No, we did send out an updated alphabetical list of services to council members. I find this very helpful.
It was very useful, thank you.
It's also on the website.
Any other reports of officers? Seeing none, we'll go to new business. We have one item under new business. It's an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Urbana, Illinois, rezoning for a 74.5 acre parcel at the southeast corner of Illinois Route 130 and Illinois Route 150. That's plan case 1862-M-03. Mr. Kowalski?
Mr. Mayor, I have a conflict of interest, so I'm going to recuse myself from further discussion and consideration.
Okay. All right. Mr. Kowalski?
Thank you. This is a tract of property that was annexed into the city in 1994 and was rezoned from agricultural to industrial at that time. There have been the property has not been developed upon since it's been annexed in 94. There have been a number of change in conditions in that area that, and for that property particularly, that warrant a downzoning from industrial to general business. Number one is primarily the removal of the tracks that had long existed and served that site. It was considered when that property was annexed and zoned industrial that it would be a prime opportunity for a heavy industrial use with rail access. Those tracks are no longer available. The other change in condition in that area is the proximity of growing residential subdivisions and some rather upscale subdivisions, and really calls into question the appropriateness of a heavy industrial zoning district at that site. But the owner of the property has attempted over the years to market the property for industrial uses and now desires a commercial designation instead in light of those changes. At the Plan Commission meeting, we talked a lot about the comprehensive plan update. That is a process we've been working on for a couple years. We're pretty far along now, and the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee has got to the point that reviewing new future land use maps, and we've spent a lot of time in the last couple meetings talking about the High Cross Road corridor, specifically north of the interstate, where residents in that area do not want to see a lot of development, but have recognized that south of the interstate does make good sense to develop with some new commercial uses. So that process continues, and you'll be seeing more maps on that as well. You'll remember that the question tonight is to consider the appropriateness of the B3 zoning district at this location. There is other business zoning in close proximity, mainly across the street at the corner of the Behringer Commons subdivision. Questions about development plans, developers, developer review, subdivision, platting, drainage, utilities, traffic, and all that will be addressed if there is a development proposed and there is any platting of the property required. Of course, all of those aspects are looked at in the Land Development Code and would be addressed at a future time. Your staff report outlines a summary of findings that have been adopted by the Plan Commission. I won't take the time to read all those, but they're in your staff report. Of course, your options are to either approve the rezoning or deny the rezoning. On August 21st, the Plan Commission held a public hearing and did recommend approval of this rezoning. Take any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mr. Kowalski? Ms. Wyman?
Just a couple for clarification. I appreciate the memo that Dr. Tyler gave us. But just following up with that, if there is any development that occurs on that, that has to then come to council or come to Plan Commission and then council before anything can actually be constructed on that property?
It would depend on what land use is proposed on that site. When a land use is proposed, we go to our table of uses and find out if something is either permitted by right or permitted with a special use permit. If it is permitted by right, there still are development issues that would have to be addressed, traffic impact analysis and subdivision and platting requirements. Plats are reviewed by the Plan Commission and City Council. If it is a use that is requires a special use permit, you would review a site plan. So it really depends on what's proposed.
As well, one of the speakers brought up the issue of lighting, and I'm wondering how that, if that has to go, what sort of approval is necessary, and if we've got any requirements or regulations as far as how bright that lighting has to be, or that sort of, or can be, as well as for signs and that sort of.
The standards for lighting would fall subject to the requirements of the zoning ordinance. We don't have a specific requirement for lumens or foot candles or anything like that, but it does explicitly state that lighting shall be directed down towards a parking lot or down towards the ground and not into residential areas or adjacent uses. So that's what we'd work with.
And as far as signage, I know there's certain, at least in some areas, signs can only be so large, a certain number of feet or meters or that sort of thing. Is that consistent with if this is changed to B3 zoning? Are there limits on how big the signs can be or that sort of thing?
Yeah, any business in the B3 zone has the same requirements for sign unless it's in very close proximity to an interstate, at which point they can have a larger sign. But primarily it's 50 square feet for a freestanding sign per frontage. In this case, this lot has 2 frontages. Wall signs are permitted to be up to 10% of the wall area or a certain square footage, the number escapes me, that it's capped at.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Chenoweth?
Yeah, just a quick question about the railway. Is the railway zoned industrial, or is it, and is that one piece actually within the city limits?
The property that is, we're still trying to figure out the status of it, but is apparently owned by CSX, is not in the city limits
Okay.
and does not have a city zoning district. I don't know if it's zoned in the county or not. So it is not part of the ordinance tonight for the rezoning, since we can't rezone property that's not in the city limits.
Okay, so it's not within the purview of our zoning ordinances either?
Right.
Okay. And then just a question about that area and development in the area, and just looking at the appropriateness of redeveloping the area of business.